I want to go further into it from a little bit different perspective. Joining me now is Jessica Vaughan, the Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today on Washington Watch. Good to have you.
To be with you.
Okay, so many experts like you and your colleagues at the Center for Immigration Studies, you've been sounding the alarm on this whole terror threat that exists because of our open southern border. Your reaction now that this report has finally come out and it indeed supports what you've been saying for a long time?
Yes, and we should all be grateful to the House Judiciary Committee for putting the work into getting these numbers from the Department of Homeland Security and showing them to the public, because under the Biden-Harris administration, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas keeps telling us that we don't have an open border, that everyone is vetted, nothing to see here, when this report makes very clear that there is a lot that we should be very concerned about, and not just the ones that they have actually discovered that have been released, people who've showed up illegally and been released into the country. But we need to worry about the ones we don't know about, who are in this massive flow of more than 7 million people who've been allowed to enter and stay here. And we are living in perilous times, and yet we have a nearly open border. That's a lot to be concerned about, and it's too much of a burden to put on our counterterrorism organizations and on our state and local law enforcement agencies.
Absolutely, and like Congressman Tom McClintock said just moments ago, this is what keeps him awake at night, is who is in our country and what those intentions may be. If you can, you mentioned some of the, you started into this, but break down for us some of the policies that have led to the findings of this report. What has produced what this report has found?
Well, the single biggest problem is the catch and release policies that have been implemented at the border. That these are policies that were deliberately put in place by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on day one of their administration in 2021. And what they're basically saying is that if you can make it to the United States and get here illegally, usually by paying a criminal smuggling organization, and some of these criminal smuggling organizations actually specialize in bringing people from countries in the Middle East associated with terror and other parts of the world. So if you can get here, you more than likely will be what they call processed and allowed to remain in this country, maybe because you've said you want to ask for asylum, or maybe you don't even need to do that. It's from other reports that the House Judiciary Committee has released. We know that not even everybody is bothering to say the word asylum or saying that they fear return. It's a turnstile at the border. And in addition to the ones arriving illegally, the administration has allowed people to apply for essentially a hall pass to come through a legal port of entry, even though they don't have a visa, don't qualify for a visa, and are completely inadmissible to this country. They're waving in more than 35,000 people a month through that program. And some of the terrorists mentioned in this report came in that way. There were 3 men from Tajikistan who came in on this CBP-1 app that the Biden administration put into place to kind of launder the status of people who want to come in the country and can't qualify for a visa. So these are all a real security threat. We've known since 9/11 that the terrorists consider exploiting a country's immigration system to be the best way to get into the country. And in the 9/11 plot, they had to actually get visas at U.S. consulates. But now they don't even have to do that. They can just traipse across our border, knowing that they're going to be allowed into this country, and that even if they are on the terror watch list, they still may be allowed to enter this country.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When I get in conversations with people about this, probably the number one question that comes to me is simply the word why. What is this an effort to try to shift away the reality of a disastrous southern border policy and get it into the interior of the country, and by doing so, people forget about the southern border? Or is there more behind this? What is the why behind all of this, in your opinion?
That's a good question. And I think different people who support this have different motivations. But yes, these so-called processing programs are in place so that the administration can avoid the optics of having people swarm at the border and be, in shelters that are overflowing. They want to get them through as quickly as possible, one way or the other, and allow them to travel to their final destination. But in the words of Secretary Mayorkas, this is about what he considers to be equity in immigration, a concept that Kamala Harris very much promotes in a lot of her speeches and so on. They think that our immigration system should be opened up to the world for the purposes of what they call equity. So everyone in the world can have the chance to come live here, ignoring the obvious national security threats that are in the world and will take advantage of these policies.
Well, I wanted to read a quote for you from White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, and I'm not going to go into all of it. It's rather lengthy, but the bottom line is, I'll just kind of paraphrase it. She says that the president's priority is to make sure that they do everything they can to protect our national security. And in relation to all of what we are discussing right now, where is national security?
Well, it's only been given lip service. They seem to believe that somehow we can track down and find all of the people who might be risk of attacking someone. I mean, we know that that's impossible. Just today, a man from Pakistan was indicted in New York for trying to set up a plot to kill a high-ranking U.S. government official by hiring hitmen. And he just flew into Houston and then made his way to New York to carry out this plot. There are, hundreds of others of concern that we know about who've been encountered at the border. But we don't have a machine. Even if we tried to actually vet everyone who came across the southern border, it wouldn't be possible to do it. That's why the best national security policy is to routinely and consistently enforce our immigration laws across the board so that a terrorist organization cannot easily exploit this vulnerability to come here. That was a big lesson from 9/11 and from other terrorist attacks like the 1993 attacks. We know that if we enforce our immigration laws, that'll work.
Got to leave it there. Jessica Vaughan from the Center for Immigration Studies, thank you so much for joining us. And that is the issue. People need to make sure their representatives secure our border.